So as you saw, we just finished doing the die grinder wire wheels to dig out all of the rust. It took about maybe 6 hours on Monday to get all of that stuff done. Mainly because there was all this dirt caked on everything, but it turned out to be asphalt, or that stuff they seal the asphalt streets with, like a tar. So that was really difficult to get off and took forever. It took lots of acetone. The abrasives don't really cut through it. It was a nightmare, so it took way too long. I came out on Tuesday, spent 2 hours with sandpaper, 220 and 320 grit, and feathered out all of these edges from the painted areas to the bare metal, so that way there's no lip there. Basically, anywhere that a rock chipped the paint and left the paint exposed, it became a rust spot. So then you have to dig out that spot, the paint off, and you have to, really get in there, and then you have to get the area around because the rust travels under the paint. So we got most of that done. There's a couple spots that I need to get out a Dremel tool and some little mini wire wheels to kind of get those spots where I can't get my finger or the big stuff in. Some of these little shielded rubber coated wire loom things had rust under them, so I'll have to hit those up too. But we're pretty much done with all of the prep work for this, except some welding and some filing and metal work. Unfortunately, when the bike had dropped, one of these steering stop pieces busted off, and somebody took it amongst themselves to weld on a little 10 mil nut here. Feels like it was stick welded or something. So I think I'm probably just going to try and shape that with a file a little bit to make it look a little bit less like a nut booger welded to the frame. And then the worst part of everything was this kickstand. Evidently when the bike was dropped, that broke, and somebody tried their best to hillbilly weld it. So let's get you in here. So it looks like that middle bolt broke. So they just went and welded it. And then they put a nut in there or a bolt in there and then welded that bolt, which makes no sense. A bunch of booger welds that aren't even touching anything, don't make any sense. So kind of disappointed to find that. I couldn't tell at the beginning because all that tar was just caked over everything, like I'm sure you remember. Also, as I'm sure you're all sitting there looking at, there's this brake right here, and it kind of comes down over here. So this just holds the kickstand, so it's not that crucial of a thing, but you also don't want the bike falling over when it's on a kickstand, so I think I'm going to have to go ahead and do some welding in there. Speaking of welding, this bike had some of the worst welds I've ever seen. From factory, there's stuff like this all over the bike, and there's just a lot of holes. Anywhere that there's a bunch of welds beaded up, all their welds popped like blisters and left these gaping holes, so it kind of leaves like an area for rust to pile in. So there's not really much I can do about those. I could try and bead blast it, but then they just end up full of the beads anyways, and so I've just decided to kind of ignore all that. Oddly enough, I found welding sticks stuck to welds underneath the frame. I found 3 of them. So I'm not sure what was going on with Suzuki welders that day. I don't know if the guy that welded this was pissed off or just not paying attention. Anyways, I digress. Right now I'm going to go ahead and try to do the metal work. We're going to try to get this thing out into the paint booth, which is my garden shed, and get it painted. First we're going to do a 2K primer, direct to metal. Then we're going to go ahead and put on a single stage black high gloss, and hopefully we'll get this thing looking real nice. the frame is about ready to be painted finally. We got all the rust off, we got all the metal work done. I'll superimpose a picture right in here so you can see a little better. But I got this all filled in with welds and then ground it back out. The main thing I was looking for was I wanted this outer edge to fit the right stock kind of parameter or profile, so that way when the steering stop hits, it actually causes the steering to stop before it hits the tank. I think I did pretty good on that. The kickstand one, I welded up. I'll superimpose a little photo there. As you can see, I got pretty authentic with my welds. Made sure that I matched blisters. Not really. I don't know how to weld that well, so it should hold better though. Wiped everything down with acetone. Made sure we got all that tar out. Made sure we got all the rust out. And I used my die grinder. I don't know if I got a video and showed it, but if not, I got these little tiny wire discus things, and they're pretty soft, but they're small, so they can kind of get in all of these tight areas where all the other tools in my fingers can't get. And then one of the best things about them is on the backs of here, you can just ram that in there and it just cleans out everything so nicely. I think we pretty much have got this all tied up. We're going to go ahead, speaking of tying up, we're going to go ahead and figure out a way to tie this up. Probably going to use a metal coat hanger on these, because these don't need paint. And then maybe one through the steering neck, and then we'll hang it up in the shed. I also got to go through in all the threaded bolt holes. We got to find some old school bolts I don't care about to put in those. That way the threads don't get all boogered up, and then we don't have to worry about chasing threads or tapping threads later. There's a whole bunch of those little M6 type deals everywhere. I think that's about the last things we got to do. So anyways, stick around and we'll go ahead and we'll see if we can't get this thing looking like brand new.